Hello friends, it's Mrs. Amundson, first grade teacher. I am here today ready to share one of my most favorite, all-time favorite books that I love to read around this time of the year for St. Patrick's Day. It is Jamie O'Rourke and the Big Potato by Tommy DePaulo. And in this book, you'll meet Jamie O'Rourke, who is the laziest man ever. He's even so lazy, he won't help his wife on the farm. But we're going to read to find out about the very interesting character he meets who causes a big problem. Now, before we start the story, I do want to tell you about a word that's going to pop up. It's a fun word to say, and it's this word, praties. I drew a picture of a potato under there because the first time I read it, I had to look at the pictures and think about what the characters were telling me to figure out, oh, pratie is another word for a potato. So when you hear that in the story, remember that. All right, are you ready for a good story? Here we go. Jamie O'Rourke and the Big Potato, an Irish folktale, written by Tommy DePaulo. Jamie O'Rourke was the laziest man in all of Ireland. He would do anything to avoid working, especially if it had to do with growing potatoes. Jamie O'Rourke, his wife Eileen would say, will have nothing to eat this winter if you don't go out and dig up the praties. Oh, the saints preserve us, Jamie would whine. Me back's as sore as can be. Sure as I'm telling you, wife, you'll have to dig them up yourself. I'll break in two if I so much as get up out of this bed. So Eileen, who had done all the planting and watering and weeding anyhow, would go out to the tiny garden and dig up the smallest potatoes in Ireland, all because Jamie was too lazy to dig a larger garden and had no money to buy good potato seed. Then poor Eileen wrenched her back and was laid up in bed. St. Bridget and the Virgin Mary herself must have smiled on Eileen O'Rourke, the village women said. Why, it's the first dress she's had since she married Jamie O'Rourke. With Eileen in bed, Jamie began to worry. No Eileen to dig meant no praties all winter, and no praties meant no food. Oh, poor me, wailed Jamie. I'll starve to death. I'd best go to church and confess to Father O'Malley. There's no telling how soon old death will be knocking at me door. So, even though it was midnight, Jamie set out for the church. He was about halfway down the hill when he heard singing and a tap, tap, tapping sound. I wonder what that is. Sure, and I wouldn't be knowing, Jamie whispered, but I swear, it's a leprechaun. And sure enough, sitting in a circle of ferns in the moonlight was a leprechaun, singing and hammering tiny nails into the heels of the fairy boots he was making. Jamie knew just what to do. He crept up and grabbed the little man by his coat tails and held him. Let me go, the leprechaun shouted. Not in your life, Jamie said. Not until you show me where you keep your pot of gold. Now, everyone in Ireland knows that leprechauns make boots and dancing shoes for the fairies who pay for them with gold. And everyone knows that if you catch a leprechaun, he'll pay for his freedom with his pot of gold. But this leprechaun was cleverer than most. Oh, please, Mr. Mortal Man, he pleaded. I'm just starting out making fairy shoes, and I only have 1 or 2 pieces of gold in my pot. Won't you take a wish instead? Why, what would I wish for? Jamie asked. Me, who's about to die of starvation because my wife is sick in bed, and I can't dig the praties for the winter. And they're such puny praties anyhow. Well, said the leprechaun, reaching into his pocket, you could wish for the biggest pratie in the world. It would last all winter, and you wouldn't have to do anything more than plant this seed, water it, and wait.
Dad, sing this.
sounded wonderful to Jamie. Done, he shouted, and as the leprechaun dropped the seed into Jamie's hand, Jamie let go of his coattails, and off that leprechaun scampered. When Eileen heard what he had done, she was furious. Jamie O'Rourke, you're not only the laziest man in Ireland, but a fool as well. Giving up a pot of gold for a pratie seed. Well, I'm going to plant this seed and water it, and you'll see, Jamie said, and out he went. And faith Eileen did see. In no time at all, the biggest, finest potato plant had sprouted out of the ground, followed by the potato itself. It was so big, it pushed up not only all the dirt in the garden, but the garden shed and the corner of the cottage as well. Well, surely now it's ready to dig, Jamie said proudly. Look at the size of that potato. He hoed all around it, but he couldn't dig that pratie out of the ground. He got a beam and a big rock and tried to pry it out. He pushed and he pushed, but it wouldn't budge. As he was pondering what to do, his neighbor passed by on his way to the village. He couldn't believe his eyes. He couldn't wait to tell everyone in the village what he had seen, and before you knew it, the hill up to Jamie's was filled with villagers coming to see the big potato. Where did it all come from? They asked. Jamie told them about the lucky night he had caught the leprechaun and how smart he had been. Why, anyone could have gotten a pot of gold, he bragged, but the biggest pratie in the world? Well, that took some doing. However did you outsmart a leprechaun? They all asked at once. Jamie hesitated, scratched his head. We'll help you dig up your pratie, Jamie, if you'll tell us how you did it. And they grabbed shovels and hoes and started to dig. They dug and they dug and they pushed and they shook until the potato flew up out of its hole. It rolled down the hill and went faster and faster until it reached the bottom, where it bounced up high and came to a stop, wedged between the stone walls on either side of the road. What to do now? That pratie is so big that no one, no cart, nothing can get by it, the constable complained. The Father O'Malley, how's a body to get in or out of the village? What shall we do? The villagers wailed. Then they all looked at Jamie and said, it's your pratie. You'll have to move it out of our way. Well, Eileen spoke up, there's more than enough pratie for everyone. Why don't you all take some? So the villagers sawed and chopped and carted off huge pieces of potato while Jamie sat on the stone wall and watched. All winter long, everyone had potato to eat and eat and eat until no one wanted to see or hear of potato again. In the spring, Jamie said, I saved a potato eye for a seed and it's just about time to plant it. Oh no, the villagers all cry. If you promise not to plant it, Jamie, we'll promise before St. Patrick and all the saints to see that you and Eileen always have plenty to cook and eat. We don't want another giant pratie around here. Jamie smiled and agreed. What a perfect life for a lazy man. And so you see, darling Eileen, Jamie told her, I wasn't such a fool with that leprechaun after all. And Eileen had to admit that Jamie O'Rourke was right. I just love that story. I hope you enjoyed it too. Once you turn off the video, it might be a great moment to think about what was the problem for Jamie in the story and how did it get solved. Another thing authors love to do is tuck lessons for you in the books that they write. So maybe find a person in your home today that you could talk about what the lesson of this story was. Thanks for tuning in, Have a great St. Patrick's Day or whatever day it is you're celebrating, and happy reading. Bye.